August of the greatest season in the history of college football.
With that said, the job requires us to set personal feelings aside and make decisions that are ultimately best for LSU. Since my first day back at LSU in 2019, Coach O and I have maintained an open and consistent dialogue about the state of LSU football. At LSU, we expect to compete for SEC and national championships year in and year out. We are proud of that standard. We will always work to uphold. Our last two seasons have simply not met that standard. When we evaluated our on-field results and the future of our program with President Tate, we determined that it is time for us to move in a new direction. That was LSU's decision. But it is one Coach O understands. It's clear in our conversations. What's best for LSU above all else. We've asked him, and he has agreed to remain as head coach to the end of the 2021 season. We believe that gives our student athletes the best chance for success this season. We believe it will help us in our recruiting efforts as well. And I know Coach O will continue to give everything he has because that's who he is, and that's what he's always done for our state and for our university. His passion and pride for our football team and for our state are unrivaled and undeniable. The search for LSU's next championship football coach begins today. While there will be plenty of time to discuss that in the days and weeks ahead, I believe today is about Coach O and what he has meant to this program. So in that vein and that spirit, I will now give him the opportunity to say a few words.
First of all, I'll say this, Scott's been up with me ever since he got here. We both from Louisiana. I knew the expectation of LSU when I took the job. I told you that. I understand the expectation I've met. 2019. And man, 2019, what a magical run. But you know what? Because of the players. We had great players, and we had great coaches here. The players make this program, and you're able to recruit great players here at LSU. But I knew we had to sustain that momentum, and we had to sustain that standard. And I know that the last 2 years hasn't been the standard of LSU. So when he came and talked to me after the Kentucky game, I knew that it was time. And I understand that. I understand the expectations of LSU. And I invited myself, and we did not meet him the last 2 years. I'm honored that I got to be the head coach of LSU. Administration has treated me with class, dignity the whole time that I've been here. They give me everything that we needed. I met with the players today. It's the first time that I get to talk to the players before I wanted to talk to you. But I am happy that I can be the coach of the LSU Tiger Stores. I promise you this, we're not going to blink. I'm glad we beat Florida. Tomorrow's we tell the truth Monday. We all know Ole Miss. I'm going to take it one day at a time. I'm going to take it one day at a time. I'm always going to appreciate my time here. I'm always going to appreciate my time here. Not one day. I was not going to have a bad day. I'm not going to blink. I'll tell you guys that. I'll tell you guys that. You know, the circumstances. Haven't won enough games the last 2 years. I totally get it.
Yeah, let's be brief because you'll get a kick out of this, and the fun part. Coach O has not let go of the remote watching film today on Ole Miss, and he's got to get his butt back there and continue to do that. So with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions. Michael.
And just what did the players say, reaction, and how do you want it to go going forward with them and their focus?
Nothing's going to change. I mean, we're going to focus on beating Ole Miss. We're going to take the same attitude that we had going into the Florida week. The players, I just told them how it was. Nobody said nothing. Nobody talked. It was about 5 minutes. I told them exactly what I told y'all. I understood the expectations of LSU, and I knew after the Kentucky game that we were heading down a road that wasn't positive for LSU, and then there was going to be a change made, and I just felt that.
Right here, Ron. Yeah, Ed. Ron, please.
Ed, when you left Ole Miss, you evaluated yourself and realized the mistakes you made. How do you evaluate yourself here? What do you think, I guess the last 2 years went wrong for you?
I'm not the one to evaluate myself. I'll let y'all do that. Y'all do it enough. I could care less about it.
You've often talked about this. I know at Ole Miss you didn't want to micromanage coaches. Do you think at times here that you were a bit too much CEO and maybe not enough hands-on?
No, not at all. I don't agree with that. I think we did it the right way. No excuse. I think we did it the right way. And, hey, When you win, you're doing everything perfect. When you lose, you're not. That's just the way it is.
Coach, someone who watched the game yesterday said it seemed like a weight was lifted off of you coaching that game yesterday. Do you think this will be, you'll have some fun with it maybe? Is there any weight lifted off you now that this is kind of cleared up? Or?
Yeah, the weight was lifted off of me because I thought I was going to win. I mean, that was yesterday. I didn't know everything's going to be finalized, but now, that doesn't matter. That's not the way I'm going to coach. That's not the way I'm going to be. I'm going to be the same guy I was today. I'm going to be the same guy tomorrow with this football team until my last day here at LSU.
Ed, where do you think it went wrong? Do you feel like it was a lack of focus? Was it just the perfect storm to get to the top and things kind of conspired against you to get to where we are now?
I've been really concerned with the day-to-day process of what's been going on. And, I never looked at it like that, what went wrong and nothing like that. I don't have the answer. If I had the answer what went wrong, I'll fix it.
Hey, Coach. Just with recruiting, and I know that's one thing you've been huge on, the transfer portal, how the next month and a half, how do you handle that? Talking to parents, talking to kids in the team.
I'm telling them to come to LSU. I'm still recruiting players. Tell them to come to LSU. This is a great place. I recruited them to come to LSU. Why would I tell them any different now? So I'll tell them to come to LSU. This is a great place. They can hire a great coach. You can have great success here at LSU. My message to the recruits will not change. I met with 2 today.
Ed, do you plan on coaching next year?
No. What's that? I want to take a little time off. I'm 60 years old. I've coached for 37 years. I think I'm going to have enough money to buy me a hamburger, and every once in a while, maybe a double meat cheeseburger. It's not. But I want to take a little time off to find out what direction I want to be in. You asked me if I think today I'm not going to coach that. That might be different a month from now, but right now I want to take a little time off, spend with my kids.
Hey, how does it feel to go from a high to a low like this? Just 2 years ago, you national champions, and now this is the end result.
You know what? That's not the way I live my life. That's the wrong way to live. I live my life one day at a time, take things on as they come. I've never changed my attitude towards LSU. I've never changed my attitude towards life. All those external things don't affect the way I live. I won't let it.
Coach, you said after the Kentucky game things weren't going down the right road, but, it looked like they were going down the right road yesterday. So,
Well, I just felt after the Kentucky game, them rushing 330 yards rushing on us, it just wasn't LSU style of football, and I knew it wasn't pretty. I was embarrassed.
Oh, is right here. I'm sorry, up here, Coach Garland. Your love for LSU, is that the reason why you're finishing out this season? Most times when coaches are told they're not coming back next year, they just want to call it a day and move on there. What is the motive to stay here the entire season when you know you're no longer going to be here?
Well, I've been telling them, kids, we're going to finish. We're not going to blink. I'm going to be right there with them. That's the reason. And Scott and I mutually agreed. But I'm going to finish with this team. I love this team. I love being with these guys. I love LSU. And the day I leave here, I'm going to live everything I can every day.
Scott, right there.
Ed, right here. Thank you. All the players that you're without now, this season that has gone on through this year with all the injuries, and you have a player who's academically ineligible. Did you ever want to say, hey, look, if it weren't for these things, I'd be winning? Did you ever want to, look for an excuse?
Never. We'd be far without them. We did the same thing last year, so, hey, I wouldn't change a thing. Not a thing.
This week you told us that the Gator Chomp was one of your favorite memories. I'm sure you got a lot of favorite memories of your time here at LSU, but you got any that come to mind other than that?
Definitely the championship year. There was a lot of great memories during that championship year. A lot of great memories. I can't single out one. There's a lot of great memories.
Coach, you mentioned that you're still meeting with recruits. You met with 2 today. What exactly are you telling to the recruits if they know you're not going to be here next year?
Are they telling me that, what is telling them? That I love LSU, and I was telling them the right thing before I'm not going to be here, and I still have the same feelings about it.
Coach, do you feel there's some greatness in this team left as you make your
I know
last
there's
run?
a lot of fight in this team. I love the way we ran the ball yesterday. I love the way we stopped the run. I think Glenn Logan really helped us coming back. See Ty Davis-Price and see the offensive line gelling like we did and us sticking to the run, be recommitted to the run. But we're going to take it one day at a time. Hey, tomorrow is Tell the Truth Monday. We're going to get on to Ole Miss, and it's a big job ahead. But, you know, we have a tough schedule ahead. We'll take it one day at a time. I'm glad we got this out the way tomorrow so we can focus on Ole Miss.
And if you reach a bowl game, do you think you'll coach in the bowl as well?
Yes.
Ed, whether it was fair or not, okay, a lot of people are making a big deal out of what happened last year with the African-American players on the team. Can you clear that up as to exactly what's your take on what happened with that situation?
You know, that was a thing that was – go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I can clear it up. It had nothing to do with this decision. You know, and Coach can talk about his personal feelings, but it was wins and losses on the field and where this program was going.
You know, that was something that was going on across the country. I mean, it wasn't just here. So, but I think we dealt with it. I think we've made positive progress towards the things that were wrong, and I think I know LSU's heading in the right direction. I don't feel that at all on this year's team, not at all.
Hey, Coach O, who have you talked to in your family? How did those conversations go with that, you know, you told them that you're no longer be the coach at LSU?
Yeah, good. I talked to my sons. Obviously, we discussed it, and they're fine with it. There's closure. They both want, all three of them want to coach. I'm about to help them coaching. I talked to Coco. I ain't going to tell you what Coco said. She wanted to make sure I got my money.
We've seen this with Coach Maneri this year, but he said he was going to stay in Baton Rouge. Have you thought about that, or is that too far down the road?
You know, there's some things I want to do. Then there's some places I want to go and some things that I want to be part of, but I'm not really sure yet.
You better come hang out down the bayou with me, though.
That's right.
And I think, excuse me, I think it was in this room 5 years ago that you brought out the rope and you wanted to change, the program as you came on as the interim. I guess 5 years later from now, as you sit here today, just sort of what's going through your mind on your tenure? I know you said you don't have any regrets, you would have done things differently, but just sort of what's going through your mind when you think over the last 5 years now?
Well, it was a great run, if you ask me. It was a great run, to go 15-0 and have one of the best football teams ever to play. Not every person gets a chance to say that. And let me say it was because of the players and because of the assistant coaches we had. But, the last couple of years are not the standard of LSU, but I have no regrets. I know I went to work as hard as I could every day, tried as hard as I could every day, and that's all you can ask.
Hey, Scott Garland here. Getting this out of the way now, does this give you a leg up? How does this give you a leg up in getting your coaching search? You said it started today. Have you already started reaching out? How has the process begun for you?
Garland, there'll be a time and a place for that, and today's about Coach O and this team, and we'll talk about that later. We have plenty of time to do that. Thanks,
Coach, if you could give one piece of advice to the next coach that you learned over the last couple of years, what would it be?
Not my job. Not my job to do that.
Scott, you just said it's about Coach O. Just if you would elaborate more on there is such a tie with this state to that man, and likewise, I guess it's going to be difficult. It's going to be odd, right? But just what he's meant to the program and the athletics.
Yeah, like I told you personally, it's gonna be difficult and different for me because, every day I'd see Parker and I'd see Tyler, and when Cody came to town, I saw him, and I'd see O every day. I tried to make this program as good as I could, and I was part of this with O. Here I am. I'm LSU, and that's who I am, and O was part of that. And we tried to get better every single day and tried hard every single day. But It is. It's going to be something that I really miss because Ed's a friend, and he's Louisianian through and through, and we have a lot in common, and we know these things. And I can't say that about everyone I've been in business with. And this guy accepted me from day one and accepted me as a partner. And I asked him if he would, and that's how I approached it. And we did. And he let me be a part, as little as I did in that 19-year, be something that was really, truly special. And I'll forever have that with O, and we'll have that bond. And the hard times, because he didn't make excuses, and as he says, it's not a cliche. You guys think it's coach speak. He doesn't blink. And that's who he does. That's who he is. He's positive. He's looking at things the right way. And like a true Louisianian, he loves those boys more than anything in the world. And, man, when you do that, you go a long way with Scott Woodward.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I know some of you guys have to get off that sofa watching that NFL game. Rather than the rugby.
Welcome into a Sunday edition of the Jordy Culotta Show. As always, we are presented by Lance Beal, the attorney at law down there in Lafayette, Louisiana, our guy. Yes, indeed. I told him this Sunday night gig was a great piece of real estate, and it has proven to be so. Thank you all for being out there. Make sure you hit the like, share button for us. We really appreciate that. Lance Beal, attorney at law. We'll be telling you all about him and his services down in Acadiana as he can help you out with small businesses, anything that you need from a legal expert standpoint. Lance Beal down in Acadiana in the Lafayette area, bringing you our Sunday night conversations. It's good to be with you. We were out yesterday. Apologize about that. We got sucked into the good weather down in the French Quarter, man. Really and
Big
truly.
weather guy.
Went to the Revivalist last night at the Fillmore Theater inside of Harris Casino. It was fantastic. Great to be around live music and people and crowds, and LSU celebrating a win. Saints were off. Town was buzzing. Got a good Italian meal before the concert.
Not
it was
you.
all good, man. It was
Jordy,
all good.
you don't know this, but there's a separate group chat that you're not in with the
Oh.
boys. And it was big weather day. We're like, 50-50 shot. He calls this thing off.
Yeah.
He's not doing a post-game show. We're like, there it is.
It was too good, man.
Said weather 3 times with the text.
It was too good.
The weather. I can't do it. The weather.
There was no way I could have paid attention yesterday. LSU wins the game yesterday, but the news started to crack on Friday night. A lot of people were texting and asking what was going on with Ogeron, what was going on with LSU, what was going to happen in and around Ogeron's status. Tigers come out on Saturday, set a rushing record for the program, which is just
Mo was back.
Amazing. Ty Davis Price has a monster day, one that you'll talk about forever. 36 carries, 287, 3 scores on the ground, 8 yards per carry. Had a long of 40. I mean, he looked like a I mean, he looked like a video game out there.
Like
I mean,
Jackson and Tecmo
just,
Bowl.
I mean, it was unbelievable. He was just biting off chunks of yardage at a time.
Every time you looked up at the TV, he was just running. You're like, is this the same play? Is this a replay? It's like, no, it's a different play. He's just going again. It was just chunks. Like you said, just chunks of plays.
I mean, he dropped his shoulder on one guy, and the dude didn't finish the game.
Yes, I mean, it looked just, I mean, he looked vintage. He just looked unbelievable. Bruce Feldman from The Athletic is going to join us here in about 3 minutes. We're going to get on and talk to him. He has already got his coaching search up for LSU. We will talk a little bit about it. And real quick, obviously, news breaking here today of Ed Orgeron being released from LSU. That was made formal this morning by Ross Dellinger over at Sports Illustrated. I just watched the press conference along with a lot of you on YouTube from LSU Sports. I thought Ogeron felt and looked relieved in his dealings with the press. Sure, there was a down and sad theme to it, but ultimately, I thought that Ogeron was, you could sense the relief in now being out of that job. Very quirky and weird. We'll get to some of the things around it of, the full buyout. Why do you announce it right now if you're going to pay him the full buyout, you're going to fire him ultimately, and you're going to let him finish the season? Why do you make the announcement in the middle of the year? We'll talk all about that stuff coming up in right here on the Jordy Culotta Show. So please, as we said, make sure that you like and share. And there is a ton to get to tonight. But first, let's link up with Bruce, as we've been. Obviously, he has been on top of this, and one thing that you know about Bruce Feldman and Ed Orgeron is that they're extremely close. We mentioned the book Meat Market, which was written by Feldman, which was a deep dive into the recruiting world of college football through the eyes of the Ole Miss program and Ed Orgeron's first year there. It's a must-read, really, if you like college football. It's ultimately a great behind-the-scenes look. And then obviously flip the script after the championship run here in Baton Rouge with Ogeron. Feldman authored that. So let's link up with Bruce. He's obviously on top of this, and we will set you up. So hold tight here. Hey, B, how are you, man?
Good. How you doing, buddy?
Good, buddy. I'll come to you in 20 seconds. Hold tight. Okay. Thanks for jumping on this. All right, welcome back in here to the Jordy Culotta Show, brought to you by Lance Beal, attorney at law, here on this Sunday night. Good friend of ours in the business out on the West Coast who does a tremendous job. Obviously, we mentioned his books, Meat Market, Flip the Script. He's also got a couple of books where he dives in. A great one on the quarterback, The Making of a Modern Quarterback is a great read. But you really need to get over to The Athletic right now and check out his latest, his last update, his last article that he has published 3 hours ago is looking at some of the replacement options for Ed Orgeron. We welcome in Bruce Feldman into the conversation here on the Jordy Culotta Show, presented by Go Chevrolet and Lance Beal, attorney at law. Bruce, good afternoon, good evening. I know you're out on the West Coast. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Jordy.
I think, Bruce, that this information and this story didn't get real for a lot of people until you tweeted some information about Ogeron's job status a couple of weeks ago. What do you know about the LSU job and kind of how we got here to ultimately on this Sunday morning after LSU plays their best game of 2021, Ogeron gets his pink slip?
Obviously, I think, Jordy, it became more real when they couldn't hold off Auburn. You look at that game, Bo Nix made some great scrambles, and they come back to win. It's in Tiger Stadium. And then, I think as what really stung them was to get run over at Kentucky the way they did. I mean, to me at that point, I think you could feel like, okay, the decision was made. And I'm writing about this, this kind of hot seat temperature check story I did on a bunch of guys who had hot seat situations around the country. And I think it went from very warm to scorching, was, kind of how I wrote about it after Kentucky. And then just talking to people really close to the situation late last week, I'm talking like the day before the Florida game, the vibe I got was, It doesn't matter. Even if he wins the next 2 games before Alabama, even if he somehow beats Florida, and I knew how depleted they were going to be roster-wise, and then even if he goes to Ole Miss and beats Ole Miss, does he have a chance? I was told no, that they had already made the decision that Scott Woodward wanted his own guy in there, and that was the direction they were going to go in. Obviously, as you saw, we all saw, they played really hard and they played well, and they took it to Florida and beat the Gators again. But at that point, the people I trust in the situation were like, even last night, they're like, no, it's done. It's over. And that's, and that's how we got here. And it's just kind of, it's an amazing kind of turn just because it's 21 months from a national title. But, as Ogeron said in his own press conference, a little bit ago, he knows the expectations are incredibly high at LSU, and here we are. So, it's going to be interesting to see who they end up hiring going forward to be the next coach here.
Before we get to the candidates, and I want to talk to you about your list that you have up over at The Athletic right now, and it's a fantastic read. Make sure that you're subscribed over at The Athletic. You're following Bruce Feldman on Twitter for the updates and reading his latest post over there, which dives into some of the replacement options that LSU could be looking at. Bruce, he's 8-8 since he pulled out of the national championship game, or 9-8 after yesterday's win over Florida. And he has been evaluated on the football team's play. There's also been some other stuff that has gone into maybe this quick hook. What do you think got us here from Ogeron's standpoint, being that this is the fastest time we've ever had a discussion of a national championship coach losing his job?
I really think it was I don't want to say as simple as this, because I think there's a lot of things that happen that come together, either making a team great or making it not good. And I think to me, the biggest issues were the staff he put together after the national title didn't work out at all. The coordinator hires, everybody kind of knows the Bo Pelini hire proved to be a disastrous one. And then I think going forward, the 2 coordinators he hired, he went much younger. And I think those guys are still, I think they're both sharp guys, but they're really green and they're learning on the fly. I mean, I was the sideline reporter out at the Rose Bowl when they played UCLA, and you could kind of see that coming, whereas Chip Kelly out-schemed the heck out of the LSU guys. That's not to say that this is the only time this happened. I mean, Ohio State got embarrassed at home by Oregon, where Joe Moorhead, the offensive coordinator there, out-schemed, Ryan Day's defensive coordinator. Like, it happens. But I think from that, they were digging out a hole from there, right? And then, we saw, they didn't look great against McNeese State. I think they, there were some moments in some other games where they were shaky, but I think it was, they couldn't run the ball well until maybe at one point of the Kentucky game, and then obviously they could really run it well, against Florida. But I just think it came back to, there were some really good hires he made, and there were some really shaky hires he made. And I think that honestly had more to do with it than anything else, because, it's like, as we talked about, the standard is incredibly high here. I mean, he won a national title. The guy he beat yesterday, a lot of people, including myself, think is a top 25 coach. Dan Mullen has lost to Ed Orgeron 3 times in a row, and twice with half a team. And he's got, and I'm not saying advocating he should get fired, but it's like, he didn't win a national title. He's 2-6 in his last 8 games against Power 5. It's just, I think what we're looking at is, it is an incredibly high bar. It is hard to win national titles right now. I mean, technically Ogeron's still the head coach at LSU, but there's only 4 other guys who are active in college football who have won national titles. So I just think, like LSU is a great job, is a top 5 job with great resources and great talent, I think, but it's just like a little bit, and that's clearly shown. I mean, I think some of it is also Scott Woodward is a relatively new AD. He did not hire Ed Orgeron. I think he wants his own guy, and now, in a couple months from now, he's going to have his own guy in charge.
Do you think for that matter, and that not being the only thing, but that being the majority of the decision, do you think O had a chance this season? Do you think that he almost was kind of a dead man walking going into the year?
No, I definitely think he had a chance. I mean, look, if a couple of things, it's weird how some of these things work, but I think if, they don't, if they don't lose to Auburn, which was a game they were winning, and then, like I said, Bo Nix made some terrific plays, then I don't think the seat is as hot. Does that mean that they don't get blown out at Kentucky? I don't know. I mean, it's just like all of a sudden I think one thing leads to another, right? Just like, we saw a few things that kind of went their way at different times over the run that leads to a national title. I just think a lot of this is kind of fickle as much as anything else, where, it's a, like, I look at how some of these things just kind of, like I said, one thing leads to another and it works out, or one thing leads to another and it doesn't, and so, I mean, you have a guy who grew up dreaming about LSU, got to be the head coach. It was very, just the circumstances of how he ended up becoming the head coach at LSU. Like, I've told this story a little bit before, but it's like, how crazy it is that, like, LSU was all prepared to fire Les Miles. They don't end up firing him. He gets to coach, like, to start another season. Then he gets fired, where he gets fired so early in the process that Ogeron gets almost like a full season to basically prove himself. And that worked out. So he's the only guy I've ever heard of who's been an interim head coach for almost 2 full seasons. Once at USC, where he kind of was able to show people he wasn't the coach anymore, that the way people saw him at Ole Miss, and then again at LSU, he showed he had kind of evolved. So it's just interesting how this stuff kind of works when you take a couple of steps back from that.
Bruce Feldman joining us here on the Jordy Culotta Show, presented by Lance Beal, attorney at law down in the Acadiana area. You can follow Bruce on Twitter at Bruce Feldman CFB. He is a writer over at The Athletic, where there is a great published write-up from Feldman from 3 hours ago talking about who's next. You've seen Scott Woodward at work. You are familiar with how he approaches these types of openings. He is now back at his home school at LSU, playing with the head coaching job. I said that when he was on the job with Saban back through 2000 and 2004, he aspired to come back in an administrative role. He knew at some point he was going to have to make this hire, and he understands how monumental this is for LSU football right now. Where do you think he starts, and what do you expect from Woodward in this opening and where he goes?
I mean, from talking to people close to him, I think there's been a conversation probably already with Jimbo Fisher. I don't know how far it's getting. I don't know if it's going to get very far at all in terms of that. But I think that would be an obvious one. The one I had heard about this afternoon was that, hey, he's going to take a big swing and make Dabo Swinney say no. Now, the question I would ask, and I posed this person, was, would he actually want to be in Nick Saban's own division when the ACC is set up for him and Clemson to dominate? I mean, and he's paid a fortune. He's got really good facilities. His kids play there. I don't know. That would be a big pull for Scott Woodward. The other names that I've heard, I've heard he really likes James Franklin. James Franklin did an amazing job in the SEC when he was at Vandy. James Franklin is also a big candidate for USC. And again, this is the Saban factor a little bit. James Franklin has a good job at Penn State. He has Ohio State in his same division. Ohio State is better positioned to be really good even than Penn State. That's the USC appeal. There's no Ohio State in the Pac-12 South, and there's absolutely no Alabama Nick Saban in the Pac-12 South. So I think James Franklin's situation is going to be interesting. And then after you get back to that, and I talked about this a little bit on our big noon show yesterday on Fox, I understand that there are a couple of influential people inside LSU who really are high on Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker's a former Saban assistant. He knows the league well from his time as a coordinator at Georgia and certainly on Nick Saban's staff at Alabama. But would he make a third move in like 5 years? Because he was only at Colorado for one. He's a year and a half in at Michigan State. He's doing a really good job there. But again, it's an interesting situation. I mean, of who they end up with. I mean, Billy Napier's done a really good job at Louisiana over in Lafayette. I just don't know if LSU folks are going to say, hey, we're going to, we fired a guy who won a national title and we're going to hire somebody who's in the Sun Belt in our state. I don't know if that feels big enough to them. But for everything I heard, this will be Scott Woodward's hire. I'm sure he'll get a lot of feedback from a bunch of different people. But, we'll see where he lands on this.
Bruce, if you were making a hire in today's college football world, would you focus on offense or defensive-minded guys as a head coach?
It's a good question. I mean, my instinct would say to be on, to go the offense route. I mean, I think it's got to be, you have to feel like whoever it is, because there's been guys who have succeeded with both kinds of background. Obviously, Saban's a defensive guy. Dabo was more on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, there's guys from all angles. I just think you have to feel like somebody has a strong command and a leadership presence, and they're also going to work their butts off as recruiters. I think we saw that. Urban Meyer cared a ton about recruiting. He won 3 national titles. Nick Saban, he basically created the blueprint that a lot of coaches at different places are trying to follow. I mean, that was critical to him. Ed Orgeron won a national title at LSU because he recruited really well. I mean, I don't know how many people thought of this at the time, but he recruited the heck out of Joe Burrow because he bought in, and Joe Burrow turned out to be arguably the greatest player in LSU history. He wasn't a 5-star guy, but he was, that became because the coach really, really cares about recruiting. I mean, whether he's an offensive guy or a defensive guy, I think he's got to be a leader, and I think he's got to bust his butt as a recruiter. He cannot be somebody who has other people do it for him. I mean, he's got to care, especially in that conference that they're in.
You reported, and it's been reported, Ogeron is receiving his full buyout, nearly $17 million. You've got to buy out the staff that is in place now, then you've got to go out and hire a staff. Have you gotten an idea of the fiscal sense that LSU sits in right now, or if money feels, it feels like no issue on this hire right now. Do you get an idea of where they sit from a fiscal standpoint?
I'm curious to see how it's going to be, because if you're trying to get Dabo or Jimbo Fisher or James Franklin, you're going to have to pay them a fortune to get them to leave where they're at, right? And by the way, the 2 guys, especially Jimbo and Dabo, are paid an incredible amount of money right now at their places. So I'm interested to see how that kind of financial piece, happens. I mean, but look, we know the SEC seems to make money hand over fist. There's going to be new deals coming up that they're in on, especially as they go from the SEC on CBS TV deal to ESPN ABC. So, I'm sure that's a big factor in this. But again, if you're firing coaches less than 2 years after they win national titles, I mean, the money is going to, you're going to be paying a fortune to make something happen. I mean, other places just can't swing that. They can't even fathom it.
It is widely recognized, the relationship that you share with Ogeron, and he was asked this directly in his press conference just about 15 minutes ago. What do you expect next for him?
I don't think he will jump back into coaching anytime soon after this year. I mean, I don't know where you go after, after you had your dream job, you led them to a national title, you end up getting fired. Like, where do you go after that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see him wanting to be anybody's defensive line coach. I don't see him wanting to coach at some mid-level Power 5 or even a group of 5. I don't even know what the next job would be. He's already been in the NFL as an assistant for, he grew up a big Saints fan. I don't think he wants to, I think he was fine with that, but he realized he was more wired for college. I do think, Jordy, you mentioned the Flip the Script book. I know this, his own personal story, like a lot of what we talked about, like that book was framed as, okay, they went from, to win a national title. But a lot of that's really the whole thing. And I think some people, or if I hadn't heard all these conversations that I've had with him, I think people maybe don't quite get it, is everything about his life in terms of how he approaches things starts with how he's approached his recovery. Yeah. He's 20 plus years sober. And I think all those lessons he learned, I think he knows that, okay, I have a big platform. I can impact a lot of people if I want to go speak and go reach people on that front. So I don't know, beyond that, if he has a big personality. He obviously has a big presence, and he's a national championship winning coach. Does that mean he goes off and does some kind of TV, as an in-studio guy? I don't know. I mean, he's obviously got a kind of this inimitable, voice, or people are going to go, yeah, can you understand him in the studio? I don't know. It's a lot different than, sitting and wearing a shirt and tie than it is, wearing a polo and being hoarse when you're, trying to win a football game. So I don't know where that goes. But like I said, I don't necessarily see him going to coach someplace else after this. I'd be a little surprised. I'm not saying I would be totally shocked, because at the end of the day, he's still a football coach, and that's what those guys always do. But he's not a guy who goes and golfs. Like, he just, there's like, it'll be interesting what his next step is. I know he can, he has his 3 sons, but where he goes from here afterwards, my guess is it's probably more inclined to be maybe some kind of TV route.
Yeah. You expect the next 6 weeks to go smooth?
Probably smoother than the last.
Yeah. Felt like it yesterday, right? It did, and it did feel like it was a relief, a small sense of relief. I know that he was upset, and it was a dream job, but sitting up there at that podium, you could tell that his shoulders they looked a little lighter.
Yeah, I think it's hard for him to get asked about, like, how am I supposed to answer like the hot seat question 18 different ways? Because I had a conversation with him maybe a week ago. And I know he likes, a bunch of people on the LSU beat. And I think there was something where somebody had asked him something. I didn't hear it. I only got he had kind of filled me in on what had happened or whatever. And I think he was like, yeah, that didn't come out right or whatever. And I think it's like, I think that part is kind of can be exhausting. Like, how, I'm getting asked this question. I know why they're asking me it. And it's just like, but I'm not going to be able to elaborate. I'm not going to give some long, glowing answer that they probably want or anything like that, because it just, at that point, I don't think it does him. I think he really thinks about it as like, I don't think this was doing me any good to sit there and go be very reflective on it. So with those questions not there, to spin it in a slightly different direction. Like, so, I know a couple of the reporters had asked him about, like, how do you recruit for LSU when you're not going to be the head coach? I genuinely believe, like, he loves LSU so much and kind of like has this in awe of LSU football, the entity, that I don't think it's hard for him to recruit at all going forward, just because, I think he thinks, being in Tiger Stadium is such a awesome kind of feeling to him that I get it on that. There's like, when we worked on that book, he talked about some of these players he grew up idolizing in the 60s and 70s. And I think that part of him is still there. So the idea that he's still coaching there, I think in some ways, like he I think knew that he was probably getting let go. He knew he was getting let go, I think, before he took the field yesterday.
Yeah.
And we saw that team play well. I'm not saying they're going to run the table because they still have a really tough schedule, but I could see, him being a lot, even more relaxed now because of this.
Thank you as always for the excellent insight. I can't get you out of here without asking you at least one about the college football scene right now. We're about at the halfway mark, and Georgia handled Kentucky yesterday for a de facto SEC Eastern Division title. Alabama has struggled here. How do you see the lay of the land here at the halfway point?
I really think that, Georgia's defense has been so dominant, but I have questions a little bit about their offense. You look, Jordy, the last 5 teams that have won the national titles have all had like elite quarterback play. Even the ones before that who had won, Jacob Coker won a title with Alabama. They had elite skill guys if they didn't have it, at the quarterback position. And to me, that's the part where we're going to find out a lot more about, where that shapes up. I mean, Oklahoma has been an interesting ride now that Caleb Williams has taken over. Ohio State with their defense being overhauled. Clemson has been a dud this year, and they are kind of, at least this year, falling off the map. It's an interesting year. It really is an interesting season. I'm not sold on Georgia as good as their defense has been, but I guess, right now they have been the closest thing to dominant. I think it was hard for people to buy in on Iowa, as, their defense was opportunistic. Their offense was kind of blah. I'm fascinated to see who the 14 playoff teams are going to be, because right now I'm not getting off Alabama because it's Saban and they still have some terrific players. That's kind of like the default answer. I mean, if you ask me now, who do I think will win the national title? I feel more confident in Bryce Young than I do in whoever's quarterback in Georgia.
Bruce Feldman is on Twitter, at Bruce Feldman CFB. Pick up all the books. They're all a great read. I would start with Meat Market. If you want to end with Flip the Script and everything in between, it is great to read his work. As we said, all of that on Twitter. You can read the latest over at The Athletic, which is laying out some of who could be next over at LSU. That went up 3 hours ago. We appreciate you jumping on and sharing some insight with us as always. It's good to hear from you, my friend. Thank you, man.
Always a pleasure, Jordy. Take care.
See you. There is Bruce Feldman checking in from the West Coast tonight with about 25 minutes of insight on what could possibly shake out for LSU over the next couple of weeks there. He's got a great relationship with Ed Orgeron. Obviously has seen Scott Woodward handle coaching searches before, so for him to give his insight and give his look at it was cool for him to do that here with us on this Sunday. So thank you to Bruce for his time. Remember, our Sunday night broadcasts are brought to you by Lance Beal, attorney at law. He's over in the Acadiana area, so if you're down in Lafayette or if you're around the Acadiana area, and small businesses, as you know, are the backbone of the unique culture down there in Lafayette, and the law offices of Lance Beal is located in Acadiana and focuses on helping small businesses get through unprecedented times. If your small business needs help, give a call to Lance today at 337-991-6263 and speak directly with Lance. He's over there, Lance Beal, attorney at law in Lafayette, bringing you our Sunday night broadcast. So it's good to be with you. We've kind of dove into this thing pretty head first as we went straight from Ogeron's press conference directly in to Bruce Feldman, and we're actually going to catch up with BJ Ojulari here, who had just a monster game for a defensive side of the ball yesterday that very much struggled. But for us, we kind of cut out on Saturday and went and enjoyed the French Quarter and listened to some live music and enjoyed the weather. Really, I mean, for the first time, and I guess you can do that when you're your own boss these days.
It's your call, boss.
Not,
it's up to you.
Why not? And to see the feedback and everybody being here on a Sunday night, we appreciate that very much. Do us a favor and like, share, dislike if you want. Just interact with the post here. That helps us out a ton in helping us get in front of new eyeballs and people, and we appreciate that, and our sponsors appreciate that. Everybody over at Go Chevrolet, and of course the law offices of Lance Beal here on this Sunday night. I got to say, watching Ogeron kind of wrap up his tenure at LSU, I felt sorry for him sitting there in that moment. And I know it's, people feel sorry for him. We've heard you come on, and every time we turn on, you're trying to throw stones at him and you're saying bad things about him. And how could you feel bad for somebody who's going to walk away with nearly $17 million to leave a job? And it's easy to understand. But in that moment, I thought that it was at least hitting him that, this was officially done, and that the time at LSU and the work to get the job and everything that went along with it was now over. And I think you could see that in his eyes. I thought that you could hear that in some of his takes and some of his answers. And for some of that, I thought he looked refreshed. I thought that he looked relieved to have, like Bruce said, to have those questions of at least the security of the job, the status of the job, where he stands in the job behind him, because now everybody knows it's out in the open. There's no more, what's going on. Does anybody have inside information on what's going to happen? Now everybody knows. This is the status of it. It is confusing from my seat to look at the full allotment of the buyout being paid, the timing of which Ed Orgeron was announced that he's out, and the fact that he is going to stay on until the end of the season. To make this announcement now is just head scratching. I'm sure there is some reason behind it. I'm sure there is something behind this choice that makes sense for the decision makers that are at the athletic administration building, but just the outside looking in, it's a lot of disruption. It's a lot of confusion. It's a lot of questions for people internally now. I think really now a lot of the questions flip from the outside, the fan base, the media members, the people that are covering the program, to the people inside the program, to the coaches, the players, the families, the recruits, the everybody. You know, I mean, we were looking at people kind of file into that press conference when a new coach comes in, and usually the way it works, it usually does it doesn't work like that at LSU because so many people are entrenched with these tenured state-long jobs. But a lot of times a new coach will come in and he'll hire new personnel from the secretary all the way up to the offensive coordinator, right? I mean, like, not only are you replacing everybody on the field, you're replacing everybody that's around the football program. So, you know, to make this move now, to still have the full allotment of the buyout on the books, that's what's been reported today by Dellinger, and Bruce Feldman's backed that up. There's going to be a lot of, I'd imagine, questions from, players on the team, from families of players on the team, families of recruits, personnel within the building. There's just going to be a lot of, just kind of, hey, curiosity. What's next for, a guy like me? What's next for the nutritionist who's working there? What's next for the trainer in that department? What's next for the backup type? Everybody's going to have some type of, what's going on. So just from that standpoint, it was, in my opinion, a little confusing. If you knew you were going to make the move, if you knew you were going to have to pay the entire buyout and you were going to let him finish the season, well, just announce it at the end of the year.
Well, doesn't it feel like they thought that if you're in the LSU building, they didn't think that they were going to upset Florida? Like, I thought that this was the easiest transition to make the move. Was like, look, they told probably before the game, either Thursday or Friday, and then they said, look, if you're playing the odds, LSU will lose to Florida. This makes it very easy to make a transition to Sunday where, look, Coach O, thank you for everything you've done. Obviously, this is not working out. The upset is what makes it kind of mind-boggling because you're like, well, hell, they're kind of playing good now.
Yeah.
So that's what I think they had planned in advance to do this on Sunday, but they had no idea that LSU was going to win Saturday. So that's what makes it a little like the water's a little bit muddied because nobody expected that, right? Especially in the fashion that they did it too. It's like, well, if that's the LSU you're going to give me, you could have stayed on board as coach. Like, this is not what anybody thought was going to happen.
I wonder how much, yesterday was just, hey, look, let's just go play balls to the wall. Let's get the hell out of here. I wonder how much that was Jake Peets calling all the plays. I wonder how much that was just letting people do their job. There is curiosity behind that. There is some sense of, hey, what was yesterday? Why did yesterday look so different and so much just, hey, do the things that are going to make you win. It just the depleted. By the way, Dan Mullen in Florida, my God,
dude,
that is
their number.
2 years in a row where you thinking it doesn't matter who we dress out, we're going to win the game. Remember last year they didn't dress out Pitts, they didn't dress out any of their players. They're all standing in the fog watching while
kisses.
Third teamers are just like routing them up and down the field. They did the same thing to them yesterday. Where they're going back and forth. It was a heavyweight. Even Scott Woodward's got to be sitting up in the AD box thinking, you've got to be shitting me right now.
Every which way country.
This Ogeron guy. Who is this son of a bitch?
Just when you think you could do anything dumber.
This is unbelievable, man.
But, when you look at it from like a granular level, look at the players that LSU was missing. And if you imagine, if everybody's healthy, I know that's a tough game to play, but look at how good this team could be. And that's, ultimately, I think that's the decision. Like, look at how they could look and look at what they looked like.
Right.
Like, there's only one person you can ultimately point to. But for it to happen like that, the way it did yesterday, was just unbelievable for Woodward. He was on the sidelines just going,
Did you see,
are you bleeping me right now?
Did you see the picture of the end zone pregame with all the injured players? You had Stingley.
Yeah.
Kayshawn.
It looked like pro day
on scooters.
It's pro day. It looks like the damn combine down there when those guys are just like hanging out on the sideline. It's unbelievable. And the way they win, I mean, they're like in a slugfest going back and forth in this just shootout with Florida. I mean, it was like whoever has the ball last is going to win.
But yeah, but then if you're Florida, they've never run the ball to say, like, LSU hasn't run the ball all year. Like, that's the last thing we have to worry about. Like, actually, we're going to run it 40 times down your throat and set an SEC rushing record for the football team. Whatever. He hasn't, like, Ty Davis-Price, I don't know if he hasn't been healthy, but he looked
amazing,
unbelievable. And the way they're, like, the offensive game plan did look different. Everything that they were doing from the offensive line standpoint, Brad Davis might have saved his job. He just got here, but he can stay.
Right.
And then if you're Jake Peets, and if that's what it really is, if it was just being hands off, then doesn't that hurt him even more to be like, I did it. I fucked it up.
Well, no,
like, I was in the way.
There's no way.
That offense looked totally different.
There's no way that Ed Orgeron, in his moments by himself, where it's him and his thoughts, can really and truly, and especially if he's the man that he claims to be, where it's there's no way he can look outside of his own circumference and say, man, I did this. I screwed up my dream job. I couldn't get out of my own way. I couldn't get out of my own way. The football gods sent me an angel in Joe Burrow and saved my life, because really, and we'll go through this tonight. We're going to talk to BJ Ojulari here in a couple of minutes, but people, remember this. In 2017, when they lost back-to-back weeks to Mississippi State and Troy, the administration at LSU and the Board of Supervisors were meeting to fire Ed Orgeron. They were going to get rid of him. They were going to promote Dave Aranda to the interim head coach. They were going to give him an opportunity to get there and see if he couldn't get it. But they were going to go into another coaching search after the Ed Orgeron hire just a year previous. They were going to do that in 2017 after those Mississippi State and Troy losses. And then Ogeron comes back home against Auburn, goes on the road against Florida and wins in that dramatic fashion against Florida, where Devin White plays the game of his life, where he's sacking Felipe Franks, and they win. Christian Lacature plays every single snap because they don't have any defensive tackles. And they're still coming home to Baton Rouge, and people are still talking about firing him. And Board of Supervisors want him out. And then they go to the game against Auburn, and he's down 20-0 after the first quarter. This is the game that DJ Chark returns the punt. Yep. Russell Gage takes the reverse, gets it down to the goal line, catches the crazy one-handed pass in the corner, and they win that game, and they ultimately kind of find their footing to stumble in to a pretty good year, and then Burrow shows up, a football angel from the gods, comes down and gives Ed Orgeron a 2-year grace period to get this thing right. Figure it out, man. You've got 2 years on the arm of this guy that is going to allow you the grace to overcome your coaching deficiencies. Figure out what they are and how you can live into the future of holding on to this job. If it really is your dream job, then you've got to figure it out between 2018 and 2019, and then in 2020, they're giving you back the keys, man. And when you get the keys, you can't wreck it again if you want to keep this job. And he drove it on the curb. He put it on the wall. He put it in the wall. He couldn't get out of his own way in the last 20 games. Think about it. And we'll talk more about it coming up here. And I'm not here to dump on Ogeron tonight because what's done is now done, right? I mean, people, if you've watched the show over the last couple of weeks, people understood on what side of the meter we fell on. We knew that the move was going to be made. It wasn't if, it was when. Now it's been made. There's nothing more to say about it. Really, ultimately, we can look back and rehash on how we got here, and we'll do that tonight. But not every day are we going to sit here and just, told you so, told that about time. I mean, look, even the most out-of-touch LSU football supporters, people out there that were following the program, knew this was coming down. So we're not here to dump more coal on the fire, man. But we'll rehash how we got here, and we'll talk about it here on a Sunday night and interact with you. And we see you out there, Lance Beal, attorney at law, bringing you this conversation on a Sunday night. We appreciate that. Make sure you hit the like and share LSU Bayou, but you kind of are dumping. Well, look, man, I mean, we're going to talk about how we got here.
He didn't get fired for no reason.
Right? I mean, we got to talk about
we're here.
some of the things that happened to the lead up here. And, you know, the majority of it's not good for Ed Orgeron because that's why we're here. So we'll rehash that, but we're not here to, you know, what's done is done.
Gotcha game.
What's done is done. Give me 30 seconds. We'll get BJ Ojulari, talk to him about his day, how you prepare, some of the mood around the building, and what's next for LSU football coming up here on the Jordy Culotta Show. Driven and powered by Go Chevrolet all the time, and on Sunday nights we're brought to you by the law offices of Lance Beal down in the Lafayette and Acadiana area. Lance Beal, attorney at law.
Got his money's worth today.
Papa Earl's, the fine spice, originating right down here in South Louisiana by our guy Mark Pop Norman. Developed it back in 2018 and won Amazon's Newcomer of the Year in 2019. They pride themselves in having 30% less salt and sodium than the leading brands at the same price point. You can find them locally. Look for Papa Earl's at Rouse's, Calandro's, Mathern's, High Neighbor, and more. Welcome back in here to a Sunday night edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet, and brought to you as always on Sundays by Lance Beal, attorney at law down in the Acadiana area. You can get in touch with him by dialing him up. He's at 337-991-6263. That's 337-991-6263. In fact, if you're over in the Lafayette area, type that into your contact list. Lance Beal, attorney at law, 337-991-6263. He brings you our Sunday night shows here, and every Sunday night we catch up with one of the premier pass rushers in college football all over the place yesterday. Another sack for number 8.
9 total tackles, 3 solo, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, a quarterback hurry.
I looked up one time, BJ, I thought I saw you running down the sideline with a running back. They had you out of the backfield. I think that Mullen thought they could get you one-on-one, and the quarterback looked down the field and said, oh, shit. The defensive end's going step for step with him.
Yeah.
That had to feel good yesterday, my man. Great job yesterday. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
What was that game like? That had to be cool to get in there and get into a shootout like that.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Great atmosphere. Like I said last week, we always play good against Florida. I don't know what it is, but we always just seem to lock in against Florida.
42 points you guys give up. I guess that's not what you want to do. Tell me what you thought about the defensive. We gave your numbers. You played dominant. What did you think of the overall defensive performance, and how do you guys improve from yesterday?
Oh, yeah, we never want to give up that many points. I think we played better in the first half. We shouldn't have gave up that last second touchdown. That gave them a little momentum. But we still got to fix a couple things, and we're going to be all right. Offense played amazing. The running game was very dominant, so they helped us out this game most definitely.
Can you take me what it's like to be an LSU football player right now? I know you guys are going through a lot of adversity.
Yeah, a lot of adversity with injuries. The recent news with Coach O. You just got to keep playing football, really. We got practice tomorrow. We got to get ready for Ole Miss, and you just got to keep fighting. It
seemed like you guys were much more focused on that. Yeah, I mean, yesterday it looked like y'all were playing with a carefree type mentality, and that really made y'all play up to your capability. I mean, it felt like y'all were finally
Unleashed.
Playing like it looked like you guys were recruited to play here. Does it almost help your mindset, or does it cause more confusion?
The mindset was just everything's on the line, so we were just running around carefree, homecoming. So everybody was just flying around making plays. I think we had 4 interceptions.
we had a lot of QB hurries and stuff like that. So the mindset was just everything's on the line and just go big, go home. We had to win.
What was that team meeting like this afternoon at 6 o'clock?
Coach O just wanted to break the news to us before, any media or anything told us first. But, the media always out there first, early in the morning and stuff like that.
You obviously have a great relationship with Coach O. He's a defensive line coach first. He's a great recruiter. You come out of the state of Georgia. Your brother is now playing in the NFL and was a pass rusher for the Georgia Bulldogs. So it was hell to get you out of that state and to get you from within that Georgia defense. Can you just tell us what Coach O means to you?
Coach O means a lot to me. Like you said, coming to get me from Georgia. They stayed on me hard. He's a great recruiter. He's a great coach. I think he's a great leader as well. So, it's going to be sad to see him go. But we just have to continue doing what I do, continue doing what he taught me. And, yeah.
How much has Andre Anthony flexed his leadership skills over the past couple of weeks?
Very much. From him getting hurt, he's just been more vocal to the team. We had a player meeting. He led that meeting. Just came in there and said, "It's really, do you want to be the worst team in LSU history, or do you want to pick it up and possibly go 9-3?" So that was just the mindset. He just said it's on us as players, and not even on the coaches. As players, what do we want to be remembered as? And he's just been flexing his leadership. Him, Ollie Gay, Damone Clark, and those type of guys.
Do you guys even pay attention to the news around the job now? Do you even pay attention to that stuff as a player on the team?
I mean, yeah, you see it on Instagram, you see it in the media, but we didn't try too much to focus on it. They said block out the noise, so we'll be in Florida.
Yeah. Is it all LSU for you all the time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's great to talk to you, bro. You're a hell of a football player. You were on full display yesterday. I know the pro scouts will be looking at that Florida film from your sophomore season and saying he's almost a can't-miss guy. Thank you, as always, for your time, bro. Look forward to talking to you next week. Best of luck this week in preparation.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, BJ. There's BJ Ojulari checking in, LSU defensive end. That last question was I'm not trying to ask about the transfer portal, but he got the idea. I just wanted to know if it was all LSU for him, and I think it is. And I think if you can hang on to players like that in a transition like this, because this thing's about to get awkward, right? I mean, this thing's going to get weird. There's going to be some moments in press conferences. There's going to be some moments in game. There's going to be some moments within just the day-to-day functionality of of a football program that people are going to look around and say, what's the structure here? What's not even like from a player standpoint, even from like an assistant coaching standpoint, how do we expect those guys to be real bought in when they've got to be looking for their next move? They don't have the luxury that Ogeron did. I thought that Ogeron in that press conference really gave you some insight. I mean, look, the relief probably comes with all that money he's got in the bank now.
It was palpable
how
relieved he was.
It was evident. It was clear. You could sense it. I mean, he was almost exhale with a lot of money in the bank account now. I'm fine. I'll be okay.
Double cheeseburger.
In leaving this, right? I mean, but for Durante Jones and Brad Davis is a guy that I think of who was brought in late in the game to this staff, and now ultimately a couple of months from now could be out onto the open market looking for more work when he was back in Baton Rouge hoping to build a life here and make a future here and build that offensive line. So, there's so many question marks. There's so many situations and instances now within the LSU football program that's going to bring up just a lot of curiosity and a lot of questions and a lot of what's going on. So, it's going to be
interesting,
crazy to see how the next 6 weeks are navigated. I expect them to play better football than they did the first 6 weeks. I think you'll see more closer to who they were yesterday than who they were against Auburn, or Kentucky. Because I think, like we talked about, I mean, Matuk said it here on the couch earlier this week. Rohan will be here tomorrow morning. We'll ask him about it. When you can go out there as an athlete and just play carefree, you can just go play. There's no real pressure on you from the outside. There's no real expectation from you from anybody. There's no outside noise that you got to pay attention to anymore. Just go play. That's what it looked like they did yesterday. And LSU, when they do that, has to be a dangerous team. I guarantee you Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, now they have their
attention.
They have their attention because they know, hey, if they can run the football, we can't guard them on the outside. You know what I mean? Like, if they can establish the line of scrimmage and push us off the point of attack, they're going to be able to throw the ball over the top of us all day long because we can't guard them, even without Kayshawn.
Oh.
I mean, that receiving core, my God, it is embarrassing to think how good Jack Besh and Malik Neighbors are going to be.
Brian Thomas looks like an NFL player.
Yeah. I mean,
they're dragging people with him.
Jack Mashburn, I love that kid.
Oh, the neck
cowboy collar, let's go.
82 cowboy collar, pulling and just flattening people. I mean,
that was the secret sauce.
LSU is a scary opponent now. When you look at them, just because, you know what, they're kind of playing with a lot of case of the fuckets. You know what I mean? They got a big case of them. And when you have that, whether it's with your girl, whether it's with your job, whether it's with your football team, you know you're going to get people's attention because you're going out there and you're just playing carefree, 100 miles an hour. And when Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors and Jack Besh and Ty Davis-Price and even Ed Ingram pulling yesterday and flattening people, I mean, just putting them on their back, you're thinking, okay.
Holy shit.
Okay.
What team is this?
That's what I thought. I mean, that's what you thought you were signing up for this season. And, I mean, if that's who they are, they're going to play with their hair on fire. It's also going to be a hell of a job interview for the next guy when you look at it and say, hang on, I mean, you know what? Maybe I'll listen. Yeah, I'll listen. I mean, I didn't know you could run the ball like that.
I mean, would the best thing ever be like a UCLA rematch and then LSU just flattens, just destroys them? Like, oh, okay, this is the team. Because going into the year, this is what I thought LSU would look like.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that LSU thought that's who they were going to look like.
Got switched. I don't understand.
I want to know if Jake Peets was calling the plays yesterday.
I do too.
That would be like my inside base. That would be my inside question. You could have asked that tonight at the press conference, and you know they would have given you the standard. I mean, he calls the plays every game. Come on. I mean,
and why do you wear the headset?
Exactly. What's going on? But it just looked different. It felt different. It looked like it was schemed. It looked like they were seeing things from the box that they were saying, hey, you know what? Play your best players and keep running the same play that they can't stop until they can stop it. And they couldn't stop it.
It's the Joe Brady. They can't bleep and stop us.
They couldn't stop it. Todd Grantham could not figure out how to stop that pulling.
The counter.
I mean, it was paralyzing the Florida defense. And whoever was making the call, at whatever level, wherever they were on the headset, was getting it. They got it. And it looked different yesterday, and I want to know if that was Jake Peets calling just his game. They're not messing with him. Hey, Jake, you call it. We lost our jobs.
We
ain't got nothing to play for, man.
Go buy some stock.
Yeah, go do it, man. Call the plays.
If you've been around LSU football, obviously, a very long time, and just football in general, have you ever seen anything like this where the coach is fired and there's no coach in waiting where he's just going to go coach every week? Like, I don't think I've experienced anything like this, not only on LSU level, but just a college football level where he's, like we've said, a dead man walking, but he's going to go. Is this only a thing that Ed Orgeron could do where he loves LSU so much that he's like, dude, I can do this. I will take all of the arrows and I'll go up there and I'll coach every week.
I've never seen anything like it. I've never heard of anything like it. I don't expect it to go well. Again. I don't expect it to be as chummy as it was tonight. That was an awkward press conference. That was awkward for Scott Woodward. That was awkward for Ed Orgeron. That was awkward for everybody in there. I think, the fact that Woodward was calling him O the whole time. And Ogeron, he's not even on a first name. That might be too deep into the psychology of it, but I mean, when he made the comment of, hopefully he'll come down and hang with me on the bayou. I mean, it was kind of like it was a forced kind of that wasn't two friends saying that. And I understand what Scott Woodward wants to paint, and I understand the projection that he wants to put off. That was awkward. That was weird. That was strange for everybody involved, and those times are going to happen more frequently, in my opinion, over the next 6 weeks with
After a
just
loss.
how this thing operates. Absolutely after a loss. What's it going to be like after Alabama? What's this thing going to be like after a potential loss anywhere else on the schedule? I know that they'll get through it, and I know it'll be times that we look back on and we say, man, that was just some strange, weird days at LSU. But there's going to be some type of shakeout from recruiting on it. There's got to be some type of transfer portal defense you've got to be playing right now because of it, because now your head coach isn't really, he's not securing his future.
Yeah.
I get where he loves and protects LSU today, but is he fighting the same fight if somebody's trying to get one of your players out? I mean, if somebody's recruiting Eli Ricks right now and Ricks is out of the season right now and can't help LSU immediately, I understand that Ogeron loves LSU, but isn't it human nature to go through a breakup with your job and stay on the gig for an extra 3 months and not be that worried about the future of it? So if Ohio State gets in touch with Eli Ricks and O knows about it, is he playing as much defense as he is and as he was last week? How's he handling the conversations with Quincy Wiggins now? How are the conversations going with Jacoby Matthews and Shaz Preston and the uncommitted guys in the state of Louisiana? All of that stuff behind the scenes, while I gotta believe has been discussed and talked about during this transition, you're still yet to see how that's going to happen and how that's going to function. So, like I've always said in this process, I trust Scott Woodward. I think that Scott Woodward is the right guy to make this move right now, and he understands the weight, the scope, the job and which it means, man, and what that seat holds and what it means to not only LSU athletics, but to the entire state of Louisiana. And he has worked at LSU before in early 2000. He has seen what it means to have the right guy in place. He has aspired his entire professional life to get back to LSU. And I think in that aspiration, he knew that he was going to have to make this move, make this hire, make this choice. At some point, you're going to have to call it. You're going to have to hire the LSU football coach. And you don't want to do that multiple times. If you're the AD and you got to do that more than once in 10 years, you're probably not going to be on the job long. Or at least as long as you want to be. And Woodward understands that you probably have one true swing at this thing. And I don't know if he's, how can you be, but if he's prepared for the management of how the job is functioning right now. I hope that the right people are put in place where somebody's selling the message, somebody's protecting the brand, somebody's out there pushing recruits in rather than out, and protecting LSU football where it's just in a state of instability, very fragile, looks very, very vulnerable and open to the competition. And that protection to me has to be priority number one. And like we've always said, the transition between Ogeron and the next guy has to be pretty seamless and quick. But now, it being in season, they've given themselves some time, but you've got to watch that this thing doesn't get tremendously worse before it gets better, just because you don't have you don't have the real buy-in. Yeah, it's easy to say that you have the buy-in. The contract states that you have to continue to stay bought in, but I mean, you can do the bare minimum that contract regards you and requires you to do to get that paycheck, to just make sure that, yeah, I mean, are you really staying at the office until 10 o'clock at night now?
Everybody's put in a 2 weeks notice before. They know the feeling of like, I'm kind of done here. Like, yeah, sure, I have to work for 2 more weeks, but you're not working as hard as you were the first day you got there. You're going like, I mean, there's nothing that can really happen to me. I've already done it. Like, and that's where Orgeron is right now, and it's up to Scott Woodward's putting it still seems like a lot of trust in Ed to be able to finish this thing out. Like you said, they dangled the carrot, or, you know, hey, go fly the plane whenever you're not a pilot, but don't crash it. And it's like now they've done the same thing here. It's like, Ed, go see what you can do with it, even after you've been fired as the pilot. And so Woodward's there with him right now, and it makes me wonder, do they announce, if they do have a hire in place, like whenever they get to that point, when do you announce it? Do you announce it after the end of the year, or is this going to be a slow trickle with Scott Woodward playing the game of, okay, now we announce this? Is he going down the checklist, I guess is essentially what I'm asking with. Does he have the next guy in mind? And then when do you announce it? Do you announce it at the end of the year? Do you announce it mid-season?
Well, I don't believe for a second, as he announced tonight, that the coaching search started today.
Yeah, that's not
I
true.
mean, that coaching search has started a while ago, and that thing's been in motion. And a couple of names that we pointed out, and we talked to, we talked to Bruce Feldman, who has a excellent update over at The Athletic, giving some names. And look, there's some big names on that list, including Jimbo Fisher, who's the number one person on the list. And we asked Feldman about possible replacements. That's the first name that rolled off his tongue, was Jimbo Fisher. And obviously we know the working relationship that Scott Woodward and Jimbo have together, being that Scott was his boss at College Station. It's crazy to think about what that money could look like and what it would take to get Jimbo to Baton Rouge. I know that, and we all know that Jimbo has always had his eye on that LSU job since he stepped away from it back in 2006 as the offensive coordinator. And the time that he spent here, they got a national championship. They pumped out a number one pick in Jamarcus Russell. They,
he was handcuffed here.
Yeah, and he coached under a very conservative Nick Saban and a very dumb Les Miles. So I mean, it was it was a hell of a time. He had success. He also coached Rohan. I mean, they had a hell of a season back in 2001. But he mentions Jimbo Fisher. He mentions James Franklin. And I tell you, the name that has hit grease and the name that has absolutely exploded onto the scene over the last 48 hours has been Mel Tucker. And we've talked about Tucker over at Michigan State a couple of times in the coaching search. But Tucker's name seems to keep popping up within circles around LSU when people are talking about this job. Bruce Feldman has talked to a lot of the similar people that I've spoken to up there. People that have been on this LSU beat. Ross Dellinger has spoke to a lot of people similar that we have spoken to up there. Mel Tucker's name keeps popping up. Now, maybe this is Scott Woodward 101, where he's telling you to look over here and dangling names and candidates over here while he's really doing all the work behind the scenes over here and just has you hoodwinked. And, we've seen him do that before. And maybe that's the case. But James Franklin, Mel Tucker, and Jimbo Fisher's name are three names that I constantly hear. They seem to be the most constant in the people that we talk to in and around this situation. Like I said, I don't know if those are the top three guys, or if that's the three where they start, or if that's the three where they'd like to finish. But those are the three names that when you talk to people at LSU, all the time those three names come up. There's different names that people could have. Some people have Lane Kiffin. Some people have Billy Napier. Some people have Mario Cristobal. Some people have Mark Stoops. Some people have, Jimbo. You heard Bruce. He said Dabo, which, Dabo doesn't move the meter for me at all. I think that he only plays. He's kind of like Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. He kind of plays in only one play. I think he plays in Clemson, and that's just about it. Yeah. It's La La Land over there at Clemson, and you need a character like, Dabo Sweeney to really play the main character. And let me tell you, if you pay attention to Clemson football, Dabo Sweeney has embraced being the main character. Yeah.
He's made it all
of
about
Clemson.
himself.
It is all about Dabo. They have a Dabo cam that follows him running out of the tunnel on Saturday nights. Like, yo, Dabo, nobody cares, bro.
Put the pads and helmet on. Jesus.
He
Score 20 points.
sprints out of the tunnel.
Score 20 points.
He sprints out of the tunnel like
go play.
Like he's the starting quarterback.
Exactly. Needs pads and helmet, dude.
Is this is the guy? This is the multi-million-dollar coach everybody freaks out about?
If Dabo's here, Jordy's going to rip him apart.
Oh, my God. Depleted khakis and the no commitment. Like, Dabo, get out of here. Get out of here.
With Mel Tucker, their next 5 games are Michigan, Purdue, and then there's Maryland, Ohio State, Penn State.
Oh, he'll coach himself in or out of a job
So
really quickly.
I think the next 5 games can really tell us if he's a legit contender for the job or not.
Well, maybe that's why you make the move too.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why you make the move for LSU right now, because you just say, hey, Mel, it's wide open. You want it? Coach for it. You know what I mean? Like, hey.
Scott Woodward here.
Yeah. Go 4-2 in the next 6 and let's talk. Go 2-4 and we'll see you down the line.
Yeah, lose the number.
Yeah, right.
Don't you think though, like, this is just my gut feeling, doesn't it feel like Jimbo? Doesn't
It
all of this
does.
set up kind of because of the relationship and everything in the past?
It does.
It just feels like this is how it works. It feels like that's the.
I wonder if
that's
Woodward and Jimbo.
ScottWoodward.com.
I wonder if Woodward and Jimbo had some talks about this behind the scenes, kind of like deep down at the fishing camp.
At the hole.
You know what I mean? Down there, down here on the bayou with Scott Woodward. Because Woodward spends a lot of time at the duck and fishing camp. And I got to imagine that Jimbo's made a couple of trips down to South Louisiana where you're really, really off the record. I know you got that signed contract over in College Station where I'm paying you $7.5 million
That's still my
a year.
money.
You're welcome, bro, with the no buyouts. But
Here's $2 million.
this guy Ogeron can't handle it. He's got the skis are way too big for the feet here. He's over his skis on the job. I'm going to have to make a move here. We've talked about this, right? Like, you're on top of the list. I mean, you still in on this?
If you want it, it's yours. Jim Bob. We're not even Jimbo anymore. We're going Jim Bob. That's what it feels like. It feels like that's probably the number one. This is me speculating, obviously. I don't know a goddamn thing. But it seems like Scott Woodward Jimbo is always number one on his list.
It is.
And Jimbo has always wanted to be here.
Well, you know why? And look, we've talked about this. The lifeline for Scott Woodward goes back to 2000 here at LSU. Think about one of the main characters at LSU's football program in 2000 was Jimbo Fisher. And he was the bright and rising star on that staff that Saban overcoached and overmanaged because he knew one day he was going to be great. And Scott Woodward saw that. And Scott Woodward was almost like a confidant to Jimbo. They're around the same age. They're around, he's from Baton Rouge. He was a guy that could introduce him to a lot of influential people. They ran in the same circles. And that's why his phone rang when it was first for him to make a big-time hire in college football. And coming back here to LSU, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a ton of sense on paper. If you just kind of talk this thing out and you say it out loud, I'm not telling you that my first choice would be Jimbo Fisher for this job, but I'm telling you that everybody I speak to that has influence on this job or thinks they have influence on this job gives you 3 names. And those 3 names are Jimbo Fisher, James Franklin, and Mel Tucker. And they're just about in that order when you ask for them, routinely. And if Jimbo's at the top of the list, it would make sense from where Scott Woodward was coming from. But if you're asking me my opinion of Jimbo Fisher, I don't think he's the best guy for the job right now. I think that Jimbo Fisher would succeed here. I think if you look at College Station and you look at Texas A&M and what he's done to that roster, what he's done to the mentality of that program, and how he's overhauled just the feeling of Texas A&M, they feel different under him.
They feel like they could win a
They
championship.
feel like a national contender.
Yeah, they feel they're a contender again.
They feel like a contender.
And if you're Woodward, doesn't that, you do 2 strikes across the bow, right? You take out A&M and you make LSU relevant. Well, they're relevant already, but they take out a contender in the West and are able to prop up LSU again if you take Jimbo Fisher from A&M. Like, it's a chess move. It's a 2-part play. It's a double jump and checkers.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Have you played checkers?
No. So
King me.
it's definitely a name that's interesting. I think people know where I stand. I think that Lane Kiffin would be a great play here. I think that Lane Kiffin would make sense here. I've heard Lane Kiffin's name now mentioned along the Miami Dolphins job, where he would, and that seems to make a lot of sense.
He'll die in 5 years if he goes to Miami.
It would be worth the price of admission during those 5 years. It would be a 30 for 30.
We're going to play games at 2 a.m.
It would be a 30 for 30 for sure.
I mean, last night he was electric.
He was.
Well, that's what doesn't that hurt his case? Like what
I
happened?
thought last night he hurt himself.
I think
But that wasn't even his fault. But he's
No,
that,
it was. But that's who he. That's what
he's that
his.
enigmatic.
That's what the character brings.
Golf balls.
You know what I mean?
And he kept it.
Well, and he caught that water bottle.
He's just, he's a stud.
I mean, if that water bottle, I mean, that hits you in the nose. I mean, his nose goes explosion.
What's more impressive, he's doing all of that while coaching a game and winning.
Right.
He is playing. He's a 3-ring circus. He is leading he's making the elephant sit on the trombone. He's doing all of the things, and he's also going, hey, by the way, we're winning the football game. Like, he did his job times 2. Like, he's working way too hard.
The thing he did last night that cracked me up.
He led SportsCenter.
It was right before halftime, and Tennessee's going out to kick. He's got all 3 timeouts left.
Yeah.
And he ices the kicker with all three.
You know, I mean, like, I think that's the stuff that probably turns
them off.
People off. Where
But
they're like,
it's so
you
fun,
son of
man.
a bitch, man.
God, stop doing that to yourself. But I want him.
Bastard. Damn, I love you.
Damn, I love you.
You know
I love
what I
you.
mean? You know what I mean? And I always will, but I can't hire you.
You can't marry you,
know,
but
yeah,
I'd love
right.
to see you Saturday.
I know. I love running into you. You know
Remember?
what I mean? Yeah.
We had some good times.
It's just so good and fun to see you again.
Man caught a
Yeah,
water
but I-
bottle,
but I-
threw his hat into the
Yeah,
stadium,
let
and
him
they
keep it-
they caught it. They're
let
like, love you, Wayne.
Because I think deep down they love
They
him
love
too.
him.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's
It's
what it
kinda,
is.
yeah, it's kind of just like an FU throwing the water. It's kind of throwing it at the window. You know what I mean?
Whatever.
You bitch. You know what I mean? Like, right. It's going to be interesting. I mean, dude, the times of LSU football right now, I'm telling you, this is going to be the best part of the book the next 6 weeks.
Well, doesn't that show that even Scott Woodward can't almost handle this because of the pressure around LSU? Would you say, I know we're very close to it, but it is one of the biggest pressure cookers in all of football.
Yeah.
Because I don't think other people react like this the way that LSU does, where they're so plugged in and they want every bit of information. And Scott Woodward's, like, the fan base almost forced his hand to do this. Like, because he heard all of the ancillary noise around him to where he was like, I don't know how we're going to do this. He starts thinking about recruits. He starts thinking of the news. Like, LSU in Baton Rouge is 365, 24/7. And I don't think that he knows that. But to be in the seat that he is now when he's never been there before, he's having to react. He's almost playing defense a little bit. And at some point you're going to swing and miss. And I hope to God this is not the time that Scott Woodward swings and misses. But he has got to feel pressured also because he knows everything about this place.
It's going to be interesting on who is on the inner circle of this hire. It really is, because here's where the dynamic comes in of the institution and the athletic department. What's the true responsibility of each job title? Is the president supposed to, or does he or she have a majority voice at the table? Or is this the athletic director's role to make this choice and make this hire? I think right now is a fascinating time at LSU because now you're dealing with 2 new personalities in each chair and one that seems ready to leave their mark on LSU. It has been communicated to a lot of people that are looking for information within this job search that William Tate, the new president in the situation at LSU, or in the seat at LSU now, he wants to have influence on this hire. And he wants it to have a piece of legacy that is tied to his chair as well. And I think that there is a certain degree of Tate that expects an African American to get a true shot at this job. And if he has say so, I think that will be one of the top requirements that he is looking for. And he wants it to be a legacy hire that he can make and tie to his presidency and his time at LSU. And I think that is something that is going to have to really be paid attention to. And while there seems to be, 2 within those list of names that we have talked about regularly, James Franklin, Mel Tucker, along with Jimbo Fisher being the third, that 2 of the 3, have that in common. And I think that they are very qualified and ready for this type of job. No race behind that choice. I mean, I think all three of those candidates are
Well, on resume, you wouldn't even think about it.
absolutely blonde. When you're looking at just the resume alone, I think all three of those coaches are qualified. But it will be interesting to see the influence and really who is going to have a voice in this, because I know that Scott Woodward obviously is being advised and consulted with big money boosters. I'm sure there's some political push behind this seat, and from the institution side, who has the strongest voice? Who has the voice at the table that's being paid attention to, or who is weighing in on this conversation
Who has the final say?
with actual weight into the choice?
Is this something that a university president usually has an impact on? Like, regardless, obviously, race, color, whatever. Is this something that they have an impact on, or is this not why you hire an athletics director? Like, is this not just, hey, go, I trust you to go make the best decision possible?
That's what I'm saying. It's interesting to see how it's going to be handled, because that's where there's a breakdown in the line of job title and job responsibility. I mean, I don't know, I know it's clear. You would think that the athletic director would make this choice. It would be in his department. It would be his decision to make. But there's a fairly new athletic director in place and a brand new president that has just walked in with the biggest seat in the state open.
But don't you have, if you are President Tate, don't you just look, Scott, you've been here before, you know the lay of the land, you're a Baton Rouge guy, like, this is totally up to you. I understand the optics of, how I would like to be involved, but I would imagine, and now look, this is very LSU, because it always seems to get muddled at some point where people have their hands in jars they're not supposed to, and that's just where we live. That's what LSU does, because people care too much about this thing. But if you're President Tate, you're just like, Scott's from Baton Rouge. He understands all of this. This is his landscape. Like, brother, this is under your purview. You go do exactly what you were brought here to do, and if it doesn't work in 2 years, we'll talk about it again. Like, give him the rope.
No, it's going to be, I would think, that makes a lot of sense. But
it's a special case because he knows the way so well.
Ego's a hell of a drug, boys. It is a hell of a drug. Thank you for watching out there. Make sure you like, share, comment on the post. Please, all of the interaction serves us well, and we appreciate you being there. Just hit that thumb up, thumb down, comment on it. Make sure that you tell a friend we're here. Lance Beal, the attorney at law, brings you our Sunday night conversations here on the Jordy Culotta Show. Remember, over at Lance Beal, if you're faced with a medical issue, you want the most renowned and respected doctor you can find when it comes to the law. You want experience and dedication. A law firm that can confidently take the lead and guide you through every aspect of your legal situation, because it matters. It matters to Lance Beal. He's the law office of Lance Beal over in Acadiana. 337-991-6263. 337-991-6263 is the phone number. Get in touch with Lance Beal tomorrow, this week. Store that into your contacts list. Make sure you keep that every Sunday night. Beal's bringing us our time here. What a time. What a night.
Wild.
What a crazy time to be following LSU football and SEC football and to see everything going on around it. They won. That's right. We haven't even talked about the game.
We haven't talked about Florida. We haven't talked about football.
We hadn't even talked about the game.
That's what Monday show's for.
But we will be here tomorrow at 7 a.m.
YouTube Live.
Rohan will be here. We've invited a lot of people to the chat. We'll see what happens and see who comes back here. But thank you for all of you being here on this Sunday night. Incredible to see the numbers and see us out there in front of you. And make sure and hit that like button, that dislike button, whatever. Share, comment, please, on the post.
Poke it, tickle it.
Tom Granning, I see you. Thank you for the snacks, my brother. It was good to pull up to the UDL the other day with fresh almonds, fresh beef jerky, a couple of Cliff Bars, some peanut butter crackers, compliments of Go-Mart over in Natchez on Highway 61. Very easy to see our good friend Tom Granning over there. Thank you as always. Law offices of Lance Beal. Go Chevrolet, GEAUX, Chevrolet.com. Get in touch with the crew over there. Like and share the post. Have a great rest to your Sunday evening. Set the notification. Subscribe on YouTube. We will be back with you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. off on another week. You will blink your eyes and you will be back in the UDL with us. We appreciate that. Have a great Sunday evening.
Just sleep in the chair and live stream it.